and welcome to our Wheeling Studios, joined now by Kent Gates, who is a political advisor to the Bill Cole campaign. And Kent, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
You know, and I got to tell everybody, you went to Penn State, that's fire in the water.
Hope that's okay here. I hope it's okay.
But in a couple of years, we're going to get to restart that series.
I was there when we played each other in college, and it was fun. Those were always good games, both here and there.
I remember I worked at the athletic department, and I was asking Bobby Bowden when we'd ever beat Penn State, and he said, when we're better.
October 29th of 1988, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, I want to also remind people that you worked on the Shelley Moore Capito campaign back in 2012, 2014. Yeah. So, where are we in this race for governor?
I think things are pretty much tied. I think this is going to be a very competitive race. It's going to go down to the wire, and it's really going to come down to getting our voters out to the polls. I think voters have taken a look at Jim Justice, and they look at his business record, and I think they're starting to realize that that business record doesn't match what he's put on his TV commercials.
So if you were to compare the two candidates, what are the differences that you see between Jim Justice and Bill Cole?
I think there's a couple things. Number one, I think Bill has a proven business record where he has a track record of paying his bills on time and being an honest business guy, paying his taxes and being a responsible citizen. Number two, he has experience in state government, just enough to know where the problems are and how to get things done. And because of that, he's developed a very clear plan of what he wants to do to move West Virginia forward. And I think Jim Justice is just out there giving more of the same old tired slogans that the good old boy Democratic system has given us for the past 20, 30 years, and left the state last. I mean, you know, his plan is jobs, 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 but where's the plan behind that jobs? That's what Earl Ray Tomlin ran on, and I think it's just more of the same. And if voters really want change, I think that the change agent in this race is Bill Cole.
Do you get a sense, I mean, you travel around the state, do you get a sense, and we talked to Mark Blankenship earlier in the show, do you get a sense that there's a change in political allegiance or political solutions that people see in the state of West Virginia? I
think this is becoming a much more Republican state, and I think people are less dependent on government. I think they're looking for the private sector to help solve some of these problems, and that's why I think Bill's plans and his ideas to move West Virginia forward are much more appealing to voters than Jim Justice, who's been endorsed by every single labor union, has been funded by the trial lawyers, and really just wants to take us back from the reforms that the legislature has brought to the state over the last 2 years.
So, following up on that, though, can the governor unwind some of the stuff the legislature, how do you do that? How do you unwind those things?
On the unlikely event that Jim Justice was elected governor, I think it would be a very contentious legislative session. I think he's pretty much said that he wants to repeal right to work and reinstate prevailing wage, and I don't think that there's any appetite for that. And he also said that you know, he really doesn't have a plan to solve the budget deficit. He doesn't want to cut any spending in a state that has a $350 million budget deficit. He said he's not going to raise any taxes, which I can certainly understand. His solution is he's going to go to Wall Street and borrow $700 billion so he can pay his all the promises he's made on the campaign trail and solve the budget deficit. And that's not going to work for West Virginia.
Well, and I don't think the state wants to dig back into the hole it's been trying to get out of. It's still not out, but certainly closer to the top of paying down debt, getting out of all that stuff. And I don't think Wall Street will let us, because who's going to take the chance? You talk about junk bonds, we'd be having just...
He'd have to get somebody to lend him the money in the first place. I mean, I think the one thing you could say about Governor Tomlin's tenure is that he has done a very good job of being a good fiscal steward of the state.
He has been as good as there can be.
Not putting the state in a position where in tough times they owe too much money. And Jim Justice wants to just go and blow that in 1 year and bring Washington-style budgets to West Virginia, which is never going to work. I'm not even sure it's legal, quite frankly.
So let me ask you this, Kent. 2 weeks left in the campaign, so you know, maybe 16, 17 days from today. So what's going to happen? What's going to change between now and then? What are the events that we can look forward to?
A couple things. I think Bill's message is going to cut very much back to why he wants to be governor and where he wants to lead West Virginia. And we're going to be out traveling the state in a very aggressive manner for the last 2 weeks, all across the state. Governor Walker is going to be coming to West Virginia this week. He'll be here on Thursday night and Friday. He'll be traveling from Bluefield.
He's the Wisconsin governor.
Wisconsin governor, vice chairman of the Republican Governors Association. And somebody
a lot of people thought might be a presidential candidate.
He might be someday too, and somebody who's been through three very tough campaigns, 2 races for governor and a recall campaign, and I think has a proven track record of getting his state on the right track. And we're excited to have him in to campaign with us, and hopefully we have large crowds as we travel the state. We're going to be out there aggressively.
But It seems to me one of the things that makes me believe this is a tight race is the Justice campaign has stepped up its advertising in the last 2 weeks. I mean, they were virtually off the air, and they've come roaring back in.
Well, not only that, but they've started running negative ads. If you're really,
yes, I mean, that is the big tail right there.
Look, I was the general consultant in the Capitol race in 2014, and about this time we had put up a negative ad, and we looked around and we're like, well, maybe we shouldn't be doing this anymore. We should move towards a much more positive message. And he doesn't seem to want to do that. In fact, yesterday both Bill and Jim Justice were at the Beckley Chamber of Commerce, or the Raleigh County Chamber of Commerce, and Justice's speech was, I was going to let this thing go, but now I'm just going to beat him down. I'm going to run all these negative ads. So we kind of doubled down on it yesterday. That's not somebody who has a 10 or 12 point lead, whatever they think it is.
So what ultimately decides the outcome of this race? What are going to be the factors? I mean, it's essentially tied 2 weeks ago. What makes this go one way or the other?
I think whose voters show up, and at the end of the day, I think that the people that are going to show up to the polls on Election Day are people that want change, are tired of politics as usual. They're going to be the Trump voters, and those at the end of the day will be our voters, and that's what's going to decide this race.
So
I don't think Hillary Clinton's going to drive any voters out for Jim Justice. And there's been a lot of discussion about how we aren't performing as well as Trump. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of the problem is that people are voting for Trump because they hate Hillary Clinton. The problem for Democrats in West Virginia is that Hillary Clinton isn't performing as well as they need her to do in a Democratic state to be successful.
So if this thing plays out, you basically are going to see the Trump voters carry Bill and down ballot Republicans to victory, potentially.
I think if we get our voters out and the Trump voters stay energized, I don't think there's much on the other side, and I don't think Jim Justice is doing anything to inspire voters either. It's just kind of running a safe campaign.
All right, Kent Gates, thank you so much.
Thanks.
We'll see how it plays out here in the
2
next
weeks.
few days. All right, we'll be back with more after this.